Okay, this is day 2 of Unit 1, and today we're going to be working on multi-step equations using the distributive property. And again, this should be review for most, if not all of you. Okay, when we're solving equations are not fixed. They can be rearranged as long as the equality of the two sides is maintained. So basically, whatever you do to one side of the equation, you have to do to the other. Then we rewrite the equation in order to make them simpler by combining like terms, getting rid of parentheses. The goal is to isolate the variable. What we want to do is get the variable by itself. So there's a few properties in mathematics that will help us with that. And the first property is the commutative property. And the commutative property just means that with addition and multiplication, order doesn't matter. So the commutative property. And the commutative property only works with addition and multiplication. So if I multiply A times B, that is equal to B times A. Or if I add A plus B, that is equal to B plus A. So if we threw some numbers in there, 2 plus 1 is the same as 1 plus 2. You still get 3 equals 3. The second property is the way we arrange or group the numbers, and that is called the associative property. And again, the associative property is the way in which numbers are grouped when added or multiplied. Notice there's no subtraction or division in there. This does not change the sum or the product. So what that means is if I multiply A times B times C, that's the same as A times B times C. And it'll work that way with addition. If I have A plus the quantity B plus C, that's the same as the quantity A plus B plus C. We're going to get the same product or the same sum. And again, notice there's no division or subtraction. The third property, for every A there is an inverse or an opposite operation. That is called the additive or the multiplicative inverse. So it's the additive or multiplicative, yes, that is a word, inverse. Okay, so what does that mean? So if I have the number 5, what can I add? What's the opposite of, in this case, it's a positive 5. Well, if I add a negative 5, the opposite of positive 5 is negative 5, and so I'm going to get 0. So the additive inverse for addition will give you a sum of 0. The additive inverse for multiplication will give you a product of 1. So if I have the number, let's stick with positive 5 again. Positive 5 can be written as 5 over 1. What can I multiply times 5 over 1 to get 1? Well, if I just flip this around, if I flip these two right here, I flip it and I get 1/5. And so if I multiply 5 over 1 times 1/5, I get 5 over 5, which is 1. So the additive inverse of a number will give us 0. The multiplicative inverse will give us 1. And the last operation or property, is the distributive property. This is my favorite one. I'll say that about a lot of things in math. And distribute means just to pass out. So let's take some letters. If I'm multiplying A times the quantity B plus C, that's the same as A times B plus A times C. Same thing, so let's do some numbers. If I have 5 times the quantity 3 minus 2, and it works over addition and it works over subtraction, that's going to give me 5 times 3 minus 5 times 2. This over here on this side will give me 5 times 1, because 3 minus 2 is 1 is 5. 5 times 3 is 15. 15 times 10 is 5. So we get the same answer either way. And we're going to use those properties to help us solve multi-step equations. So the steps to solving multi-step equations, it's kind of the opposite of what Aunt Sally tells us to do. The first thing we want to do is distribute to get rid of any parentheses, and we're going to do an example below. So we're going to distribute to clear out any parentheses. Second thing we're going to do is we are going to combine like terms. And like terms means they have to have the same variable raised to the same power. So like terms 5x and 2x are like terms because they have the same variable and raised to the same letter. And if I were to combine these two, 5x plus 2x, I have 5 of these x's, someone else has 2 of these x's, so we have a total of 7 of these x's. And like terms are also constants, just like any number, 5 plus 2, 5 plus 3, those are just constants. Number 3, after we combine like terms, we're going to use addition or subtraction to get the variables on one side. So we're going to use addition or subtraction to get the variables on one side of the equation. If we're solving an equation, if it's just an expression, then we just have to combine like terms. Step number 4, we're going to add or subtract to isolate the variable. Step number 4, we're going to add or subtract to isolate the variable. And isolate means to get it by itself. And then lastly, we're going to use multiplication or division to also isolate the variable. Sounds a little more complicated, but we're going to go over 2 examples below and examples in class tomorrow. So let's look at example A. Example A, first thing we want to do, I like to draw a river. I call it a river. That just means what I do on one side of the equal sign, I have to do to the other side of the equal sign after I get rid of parentheses and combine like terms. So we're going to distribute to get rid of this set of parentheses right here. This doesn't change. We haven't done anything to it yet. The 7x is not going to change, but we have to multiply 7 times negative 4x plus 7 times negative 17. And we're going to simplify that. We get 7x plus 7 times negative 4 is negative 28x, and 7 times negative 17 is negative 119. So now we need to combine like terms, and we do have like terms right here. We have a 7x and a negative 28x because they have the same variable. So again, 112 is not going to change. 7x plus negative 28x is negative 21x. And I'm going to rewrite this as minus 119. So plus negative 119 and minus 119 are the same thing. So now we want to use addition or subtraction to get the variables on one side. So I need to get rid of this minus 119. The opposite of a negative, or the additive inverse of a negative 119, is a positive 119. So I'm going to add that to both sides of my equation. These cancel out to 0. 112 plus 119 is 231, and I'm left with a negative 21x over here. So I still need to get x by itself, so we're going to divide each side by a negative 21. These are going to cancel out to 1. 231 divided by negative 21 is negative 11. And 1x can be written as just x. So there's our answer. And how can you check to see if your answer is correct? Plug it back in the equation. Example number 2, or letter B. Same thing. We are going to get rid of any parentheses, but first I want to draw my river. You don't have to draw the river. That's just me, but if it helps you, you can go ahead and do that. So we are going to get rid of this set of parentheses right here, but be careful. It's a negative 6 or a minus 6 on the outside, so we're going to distribute a negative 6. 7x is going to stay the same. I have negative 6 times 5x, and a negative 6 times 3 equals negative 156. So when I simplify, I get 7x minus 30x minus 18 equals negative 156. I'm going to combine like terms. Those two right there, 7x and negative 30x, are negative 23x minus 18 equals negative 156. So I want to get, again, this variable, this term right here by itself, so I need to get rid of the minus 18. And the opposite of a negative 18 or a minus 18, its additive inverse is a positive 18. That's going to cancel and give me 0. Negative 23x equals negative 138 when we add negative 156 and positive 18. Got to get rid of that negative 23. So we're going to divide each side by negative 23. And what we get left with, these cancel out to 1. We get 1x, or just x, equals a positive 6. And again, how can we check that? We can check that by plugging it back in to our original equation. Okay, now it's your turn. So we have a multiple choice question and a free response. Work these two questions out in your homework notebook, and then go back onto the unit guide on my website. Use the Google form to answer question number 1, the multiple choice. Where is the mistake? Is the mistake in step 1, 2, 3, or 4? And then the free response, you want to solve for x. And again, there is an opportunity for you to ask any questions in that or on that form if you have questions about the notes for today.